Hello everybody, this is Conquering History Games and welcome to another guide to a nation in the world of Kaiserreich within Hearts of Iron 4. Today, as chosen by my Patreons, I will be doing an introduction to the United Mexican States. Really blew it out in the poll, to be honest. There was no competition practically. So Mexico won quite handily in the Patreon poll. I mean, there was really no competition. Very popular country for a lot of people, understandably so. So let's give a little bit of background. In this world of Kaiserreich, Emiliano Zapata, one of the Mexican revolutionaries, ended up as president of the United Mexican States. And so now his term is nearly up, and there's going to be an election in 1936. But we're going to get into that political stuff soon because there's but a little bit later because there is an awful lot of it. So let's look at the initial situation. You've got 3 research slots. That's kind of standard, not too bad, not great either. 12 civilian factories, 5 of which are being used up by consumer goods, because you are, of course, on the civilian economy. You also are on volunteer only. No limited conscription here. Wait, no, we're not looking at national focuses yet. Military factories, you have 6 and no dockyards. So a navy is not in your future as the United Mexican States. And yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh yes, resources. Resources, you got some tungsten and a little bit of steel and a decent amount of oil, of course. Most of the oil is north of the border. There'll definitely be ways for you to acquire that, don't worry. So now let's take a look at the national focuses. So there's a lot of things going on here. So I'm going to, as I usually do, go over them bit by bit. We're going to first just completely ignore all of this political stuff here. Economic reforms. This is your industrial tree. It is broadly divided into 2 sections called Planet Hope and Planet Hope. That is the planet that I hail from. No. This is Planet Earth. You can get some political power and research bonuses going down here. Then once you take the economic plan, you choose. You're just going to get a pop-up saying if you want to do Hope or Unity. Unity, I think just about everybody would agree, is better. Unity gives you dockyards. If you want a mechanized army, you can get the Mexican automobile industry national spirit, which is going to reduce both your armor and motorized production costs by 10%. You can get more resources. There are protective tariffs that increase your production efficiency cap. And then just some military factories down here. And then finally you get 160 political power at the end of it, just like you would at the end of Plan Hope. Hope just kind of gives you some civilian factories, a little bit of infrastructure. You can reduce your consumer goods factories for some political power. So like over here is production efficiency, over here is reduced consumer good factories. By the way, as Mexico, depending on how you play things out, it's entirely possible for you to get it negative consumer good factories. You could definitely end up having none relatively easily. So the reason that since Unity is so clearly better, well, why would you ever take it? Well, when you get that event pop up, Unity actually costs you political power to take. So keep that in mind, especially because political power is going to be a real problem later. Over here you have looking outwards, which you can actually take right away if you wanted to. But then you cannot take any of these 3 until the proper circumstances have arisen for you to do it. For example, you can join the International if you are at war with either the United States or the American Union state. You can intervene in Central America if they are at war with the United Provinces of America right here, which does actually happen pretty often. Not all the time, but most of the time it will happen. This is how you create the Yucatan Pact. And then the Reconquista and retaking of California we're going to talk about later. The reorganization of the North is my most hated part of the Mexican focus tree, although I completely understand why it exists. But I hate it, and you'll learn to hate it too. But we're going to talk about it later. Military reforms. This is your land and army doctrine stuff, and it is the path to getting an additional research slot. And you can, in fact, do this relatively early, because if you go down the right here, you only have to take 4 focuses before you get there. And if you go down here on the left, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it could be your 4th focus. So you can get a 4th research slot really quickly. So even though you technically start with 3, in practicality, you're going to have 4. On the right here is bonuses to your armor technology. You can get 3 in total, and also bonuses for mobile warfare. So if you want tanks, this is definitely the path to go down. Over here on the left, you just have your standard investments in the military, allowing you to either get grand battle plan or superior firepower. If you're somebody who wants mass assault, I don't think Mexico's the country for you. Something else I want to point out here is the purging of the high command. This can give you a national spirit, which increases your political power gain by 10%. Which is not nothing. Of course, it costs you 100 political power, and you also get additional recovery rate. However, this can only be done if Galles or the military junta has taken control. So this is something that you're always going to be wanting to be thinking about when you are playing as Mexico, is what political power, political ideologies really do I want to follow, and what is that going to give me, and what is it going to take away from me? In that same context, when you look at your military high command, you look like you have this enormous roster, but however, many of them are blocked off to you because Mexico can go as far to the left as the totalists and the syndicalists, and they can go as far to the right as the national populists and the paternal autocrats and such. And so you're not really going to have military commanders who will deal in both those extremes of administrations. So, for example, Pancho Villa here, he will not work for any government that is further to the right than social liberal. But then if you, say, went down to Carrasco here, he will not go any further left than market liberal. So if the PRI or the Zapatistas are in power, you cannot select him. And just go through these on your own time and start kind of just get an idea of what you do and do not want. And I'll talk about another focus that's restricted for you later. Your naval reforms, pretty simple stuff, but unless you're doing a really long game, it's probably not going to come into effect. The main thing is your naval doctrine. Do you want to do trade, interdiction, or fleet in being? You do not get bonuses for base strikes. But I mean, then you're talking about carriers, and if you're trying to build carriers as Mexico, I mean, you're either delusional or a much, much better player than I am, and you don't need to be watching this video. Mexican Air Force, very tiny focus tree, pretty simple, fighters or bombers. What do you want? Okay, so now let's take a look. Let's just take our initial glance at the far left side of the focus tree here, which is very big, as you can tell. You have several options here of what kind of government you want to have. Do you want, at the beginning of the game, you can change it later in some circumstances, but do you want to be totalist, radical socialist, syndicalist, social democratic, or a military junta? Those are the initial choices that you are presented with, and so let's actually start the game and take a look at the events that are going to pop up. A couple of months into any game as Mexico is when you're going to get this pop-up regarding an assassination attempt on President Zapata. This is the first major decision that you have to deal with insofar as what kind of political ideology do you want. So you can either choose that for him to have been killed, or you decide that he actually recovers and remains as president. So I'm first going to show you some of the decisions that you're going to be faced with if he recovers and comes back to action and continues to act as the president of Mexico. You're going to get this event here, the manhunt in Mexico City, where the authorities are trying to find the person who is responsible for assassinating Emiliano Zapata. It's just going to give you a little bit of political power, and then you got to wait for him to actually be captured. Eventually, you'll get this pop-up about Ramon here having been the one who attempted to assassinate Zapata. This is also the same guy who killed Leon Trotsky in real life. So, haha, on the part of the developers. And he is going to confess, and he says that there's... Well, he's actually not going to confess. He's going to say that he was the only one who was involved. But there are people who suspect that the leader of the Totalists, Galles, is behind it. So you can choose to arrest him, in which case the popularity of the Totalists will go down by 10%, but you will also lose him as your intel minister, because you start the game with him there. Or you can just choose to not let anybody hear this and say, no more rumors. And that's really all there is to it, although if you choose also not to arrest him, he will be a candidate in the 1936 presidential elections. Eventually, when the presidential elections happened in 1936, if you've been going down this event tree, you are going to have four options available to you. You can choose Pancho Villa, in which case the radical socialists will come into power, and this lets you go down the Mexican socialism tree, which gives you various bonuses. And one thing I do want to point out is whether you end up going radical socialist or syndicalism, you are still following the legacy of Zapata, and you can go down this tree here, which allows you to get oil, to get a couple of military factories, and most importantly, get a research slot. So this path can let you get one pretty quickly if you can get your hands on at least 35 factories. Now, back to Pancho Villa specifically. So he has two branches here on his focus tree. On the right-hand side, it ultimately culminates in 2% more additional recruitable population. On the left-hand side, you basically just have things that have to do with the industry. Of note here is that you can get the trade law changed to export focus via a national focus, so you don't have to spend the political power here because you start on limited export. So if you're somebody who likes a more open trade law, that's something you may want to consider when you're thinking about how you're going to be moving over. And then at the end, you you can get less consumer good factories here, and wait, where was it? And right here. These two both reduce your consumer good factories. See, this is what I was talking about, how as Mexico you can easily get to zero if you play things out correctly. All right, next up is Vicente Toledano, who would replace Zapata as the syndicalist president. And again, he kind of goes down into two different branches here, one of which goes through a series of events, and the one on the left just gives you more industry stuff. It's factories and things like that. So I'm going to first elect Toledano, and then we're going to take a look at exactly what these events do. Here are the three demands that you are going to have to deal with if you go down Toledano's syndicalism tree here. And they basically are just demands where you can improve the quality of life of these various unions. And if you do it, then you get bonuses in exchange for money, essentially. So, for example, you can fulfill the demands of the miners, which will increase your consumer good factories by 2%. However, you'll get a 10% resource gain efficiency in return. So it is effectively the equivalent of, where is it? Here we go. Yeah, of going over to the construction tree and getting another one of these excavations for 2 consumer good factories. Now, for all of these, they have the same rejection cost of 60 political power. So I'm just going to fulfill them all here just so you can take a look at the nice pretty pictures. Now over here you'll get more construction speed, and if you do what the teachers unions want, you get an additional 5% research, and they all look the same. You get the little science beaker thing. So those are what happens when you go down this tree. Of course, nobody's telling you have to go there. You can just skip them and go down this tree, or never do them and go work on your industry or something. But there you have it. That is the trade-offs that you will make if you choose to go down the syndicalism tree with Toledano. Third option here is electing Calles, the hardline general, to get totalism. So totalism is very much it's a jack of all trades, master of none branch of the focus tree. Of course, you're going to establish the Maximato, which is going to give you more political power gain, additional 5% to be exact. So over here, you can get that additional 5%, and then you can later combine it with the purging of the high command over here, and you're going to be getting a total of plus 15% political power gain. So these are the kind of things that you want to think about. You want to play to the strengths of the party that you choose. But besides that, you really just have this interesting variation of stuff here. Your 5th research slot is right there, but I mean, you have things that give you more political power right here, but this costs you political power via banned strikes, except you get a higher production efficiency cap. This is particularly interesting. It's where you can switch your civilian economy with early mobilization. So again, you want to be thinking about how your economy is in relation to this, and you can get a little more oil down here. Honestly, I don't think that the stuff on the lower end here is that great, but maybe that's a strength in its own way. If you're not spending time on your political focus tree, that means you can spend more time on your industry or your army or something like that. So these are the things to keep in mind. And then finally, we have what I try not to take sides on this, but I really think this is the weakest way to go. Cardenas and the Social Democrats. I honestly feel that the only reason this guy is here is so the United States can sometimes catch a break with RNGesus. So this leads to the pre-winning, in which you can honestly get a lot of political power. You can become a very popular party very quickly. You only start at 10% here, but once you elect him, it's going to go up to 30%. And then you can start to institute a series of national focuses, which are going to increase your popularity. So as you can see here, plus 5%, plus 10%. There's some more here, plus 10%, plus 10%. So it can start to add up pretty quick. Here's your, this is not actually the research slot, my bad. This is the research slot way at the bottom here. This does increase your research spirit, though. And a lot of the stuff that's kind of the same everywhere. You get some factories, you get some more oil, things like that. So I mean, if you want to be popular and do nothing, I suppose this is the way to go. But I think it's a very, very weak tree, especially when we consider that Social Democrats, even though they're getting all this political power, they cannot even justify until they're 75% world tension. So not good. Not good at all. And so that's basically all there is to it, to this half of the Zapata assassination political tree. Let's go back and take a look at what happens if Zapata dies from his assassination attempt. What we are looking at now is the pop-up that you are going to get when you declare that Zapata has died, and you take a pretty big political power hit too, by the way. So you have three options here. You can either choose to have Toledano become the leader of the Syndicalist Party, and then you can get some events about when the election is going to be, or if there ever will be any sort of an election. Honestly, if you want Toledano, just take the presidential election path. Then you have here where Calles and his military clique can seize the Palacio Nacional. So this is how you get the totalists in power once more. And what we're going to look at here, this is the main reason I think what you want to know about if you have Zapata die, is have the reactionary generals Garza and Trevino form a junta. So let's click that, and what is going on? I swear my computer's being so slow today. So there you have Pablo Gonzalez Garza becomes the I guess your national leader, while your head of the government is Trevino Gonzalez down here. And this is pretty cool because he gives you additional army experience every day. But the important thing is that the paternal autocrats are charged. So this is how you get onto the right, meaning politically right, not right or wrong right. I'm not trying to take any sides here, part of the focus tree. So this is going to open up a new Mexico for you. Of course, it's not open right now because I'm already researching something. But once you take it, you see the first focus is going to give you additional popularity for basically all the non-syndicalist groups. So that's what that does for you. Then, yeah, you're purging all the elements of the old society, dissolving the ejidos here. When you see there are so many over here, empowering them, expanding them, taking control of them. Yeah, very low popularity. So that's why you need to purge this stuff. So if you're going to take this focus, if you're going to go down the New Mexico tree, I mean, you're at very low popularity and hardly getting any political power at all. So it may behoove you to quickly run down this focus. So we're going to come back and we're going to take a look at what happens when it comes time to restructure the regime. So I'll see you over there. Shortly after the military junta takes over, you're going to get this pop-up about the new military government of Mexico. I'm sure that I don't have to actually tell you that if you want the junta to stay in control, you have to select the junta is here to stay. So this is going to cost you another 200 political power. So it's just devastating, and you're already at very low popularity. However, you are going to become 15% more popular, so there you go. You're at least at low popularity now. So now that you have done this, you can, in fact, take a new Mexico focus here. And the manhunt is going to still happen regardless. After you take a New Mexico focus and you go down these four focuses here, once you complete restructuring the regime, you're going to get this pop-up that is going to give you three options to choose from. You can continue to keep the junta, which will give you more political power. And by the time you get down here, you'll be pushing about 60%, give or take, depending on when you get the pop-ups about increasing your own popularity. You can choose to restore the monarchy, or you can go with the synarchist coup. So for now, let's go take a look at what happens when you keep the junta. So when you keep the junta, obviously it's going to open up that focus for you. I have the console commands on, by the way. But you still do have two options to go down here. You can go with the capitalist junta, which could be a bit strange because it actually is going to increase the party ideology of your market liberals, which I suppose makes sense in its own way. But you got to keep that in mind, and you're also going to get a new intel minister here. There is not one now. But again, these are the things you want to keep in mind. And then it's just some industry things, industry bonuses, additional factories and stuff like that. And it all leads down here to the research slot. However, you can also go with the traditionalist junta, which again does not actually increase the popularity of your own party. But going down this way is going to increase the popularity of the social conservatives by 20%. Now, both of these parties that I've mentioned, both the market liberals and the social conservatives, are already not very popular anyway. So, I mean, maybe you'll end up taking some from the Zapatistas that are still hanging around here. And this leads to the anti-clericism, which is more about political power, although you do get the population growth right here. Just kind of go through them on your own time and decide which one that you feel is better for you. Now let's take a look at restoring the monarchy. Then you get this event, the old and the new dynasties, where you get two options as to who your monarch is going to actually be. The first option here, let's just flip over. You get Doña Maria Josefina Sofia de Habsburgo Iturbide, which I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. And I actually do not think this is accurate according to her age picture. But basically, she is a Habsburg descendant who now is the head of the Mexican Empire. But maybe you are not interested in having a Habsburg be the ruler of Mexico. You know what? Keep those Austrians or Spaniards or whatever the hell they are. Keep them over in Europe. This is the new world. We need a new kind of king. Well, you can then choose, and it'll still cost you 200 political power, Don Fernando, the Duke of Montezuma, and instead of the Mexican Empire, you get the Mexican Kingdom with these very lovely shades of green and red. So there he is, Don Fernando de Tulatengo. Basically, this is the closest that you can get to a restoration of the Aztec Empire. And besides that, you still are going to go down this middle tree, the new aristocracy and whatnot. Finally, let's take a look at the Synarchist coup. So if we take a look at the political popularity here, you'll see that the Synarchistas actually are at 0 right now as far as their popularity. But you can invite them to be your ally in the government, and if you do so, you're going to get some more political power, and they will become 15% more popular because they are, they are seen as being allied with your regime. However, once you actually take the coup focus, once a little bit of time passes, you are going to have an attack by them in which they stage a coup, and this is going to cost you 200 political power as well, and all of your ministers, your leaders, everybody is going to be changed, as well as you getting an additional 15% popularity. But still, this does not really put you in a good position as far as popularity is concerned. They have their own line here in the focus tree, which doesn't particularly focus on any one thing. I mean, there's a lot of industry ones down here, but for example, establishing the gold shirts will give you political power, but then over here you get factories. But as is usually the case with national populist countries in Kaiserreich, there is a focus that will give you additional recruitable population, so you can get 2% more right here, as well as getting a change in the popularity of an additional 10%. But still, oh yeah, and the Catholic state also gives you 15%. So if you go all the way down this branch, you can get reasonable popularity for the national populace. And the Papal University is, again, waiting for you down here. Although, keep in mind, did I already say this? But it takes 140 days and costs you 40 political power to take this, as opposed to, say, over here, if you did it with the Social Democrats, there's no consequences and it only takes 70 days. So these are difficult trees to go down in their own ways. Definitely takes the longest to get to that research slot out of all the other options that you have available to you. So, I think it is now finally time to talk about looking outwards and the reorganization of the North. When the Second American Civil War begins, which it almost always will, if you've already taken the looking outwards national focus and you have also not become socially democratic, you have the option to take the Reconquista focus, in which you can attempt to reclaim your lost territories. Things have worked out especially well in this particular situation because MacArthur has decided that he is going to fight the Canadian Commonwealth as well as fight a civil war. So this is basically worst case scenario right now for the United States. Actually, no, they're not at war with the Pacific States of America. But as soon as you are done with it, you just need to wait a little bit. You get the Reclaiming Our Lost Territories event, which gives you 3 options. You can demand the return of your territories, in which you will gain claims on basically all of the Southwest, and the United States will get an event regarding your demands, or you can just claim them and nothing else, or you can say it's too dangerous and lose political power. There's really absolutely no reason to do this, so let's just go ahead and demand the return of the territories for maximum political power gain. Then you have to wait for the United States to receive the message. They have to get that event spawned, and then you have to wait for them to answer. So this could sometimes take a little while. The Americans have refused your demands. They will just about always do that. You can walk away from the war at the cost of political power, or you can decide to declare war and get another 100. 100 political power, huh? Exactly the amount it costs to increase your conscription, you say. Seems like the right thing to do. So once you go to war with the United States, as you begin to advance into their territory, you are eventually going to get a pop-up for a possibility of a peace treaty. So I'm just going to fast forward ahead to when that is. Eventually, in your war with the United States, you are going to get an event pop up, one of these two. I actually ended up getting them both at once, and they're both called the Treaty of Acapulco, so it could be annoying. But the first one here with 2 options is what happens after you take just a little bit of territory from the United States, in which you can sue for peace and say that you've had enough of fighting. So if you do this, actually, oh geez, I think I selected those in the wrong order. But the point is, if you do it that way, taking the Treaty of Acapulco that gives you 2 options, you will get some territory back, but only a limited amount. It's going to basically incorporate Texas and New Mexico and Arizona. As you can see, it sometimes takes a while for the United States to get back to you. Incidentally, I was wrong. Canada is actually at war right now with the Combined Syndicates of America, further proving the unbreakable rule of Kaiserreich that if you ever want to see the Combined Syndicates of America be defeated, then you must play as a syndicalist country. Okay, so it seems like we've been given both options here. But this is actually pretty good. This works out nicely. So if you take the option that you were initially given, you will get control here, as you can see, of South Texas, Trans-Pecos, Northern Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Tucson. So here, 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 and here. But if you get the second one, you will get 100 political power, which is paying you back and more for the negative political power you would have taken if you didn't take the treaty. As you see, you get a lot more given to you. It's considered a white peace, but you also get Utah and Nevada, which admittedly do not give you very many factories. But the important thing is Nevada gives you a bigger border here with the Pacific States of America, because that is who you're going for next. You can then take California if they are not members of a faction or they have been guaranteed by anybody. So basically you're taking them on while they cannot, while nobody's helping them. You get another option. Now, unlike the war against the United States, it actually costs you political power to attack the Pacific States, and you'll gain it if you walk away. So you can choose to attack. And then that's how you'll be able to destroy the Pacific States of America. The only other event you'll get is after you take California, you get a chance to stop, but you can go on and take Oregon and Washington if you want to pay just a little bit of political power. And I think that is just about everything you need to know about playing as Mexico. Oh, wait a minute. This freaking tree. Let's talk about the Anglo Rebellion. This will, or dealing with it to be more specific, this is something that is going to happen after you have secured most of your, all of your old land from the United States, and then the Anglos that live there are going to begin rebelling against you. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to decide how you are going to reorganize the territories. This is a relatively minor effect. It's just, do you want to get a little bit of political power, or do you want to lose political power in exchange for national unity? It really doesn't matter. But the point that I want to show you here is just how badly this can screw you in regards to your political power. If you want to see a more detailed guide as to how I personally dealt with this Anglo rebellion, there will be a link in the description below to my playlist where I play as Mexico, and you can see how I did there. But I'm going to focus autocomplete all of these just so you can take a look at how much political power you could potentially lose. So let's say we go with, see right now we're at negative 43. Take another minus 60 from going conservative, and then we take all of these 5 focuses here, which deal with various issues in the North and what you're going to do about them. Please keep in mind that you do not have to finish the Hollywood question to get access to either establishing a secret police or recruiting vigilantes, and you need to take one of these before you can finally end the rebellion. Alright, here we go. So let's go over these one at a time. From right to left, first off, the status of languages in the territories. This just decides like what are the street signs made of. You can go with Spanish, bilingual, or English. If you go Spanish, you'll get a military factory out of it, but that's another minus 60 political power. Next, religion. You can enforce Catholicism or enforce anti-clerical laws from 1917, both of which would give you the national spirit, religious unity, which reduces your daily political power costs by 0.15 a day. Do the math yourself and decide that if it is worth it to you or not. So we're going to take that minus 250. Next, the status of the northern women. Another one that gives you 3 options. You can give them universal rights for factory output, just get a little bit of political power, or lose political power. If you give them rights for the factory output, as you can see, we're already at minus 566. Status of the natives is next. You can help them out and lose a bunch of political power for 1 military factory, or you can gain some political power. That's another minus 80. And then the fate of the Alamo. This is an old mission that was in San Antonio. It was the site of a massacre during the Texas War of Independence against Mexico. So you can make it a cultural heritage site, a war dead memorial, or have it demolished for a couple of civilian factories. I think this should be the last one you take because it has the potential to give you 140 political power. But we're going to demolish it and take that minus 200. So look at that. That was what, 800 negative political power that was taken from just these 5 focuses alone. After that, you get the choice between establishing some secret police or recruiting some vigilantes. If you establish the secret police, you only get 150 political power, but you do get 2 secret police divisions. I personally don't think that's worth it, so I tend to go with recruiting the vigilantes for 200 political power, but another 250, pardon me. But something else that you're going to want to keep in mind is that neither of these focuses takes 70 days. They both take 150 days to complete normally. And then finally, you can end the rebellion, which takes 140 days. So again, it takes twice as long as a normal national focus does. And here, this is what I was waiting for. Gringo riots. This is just an example of the riots that are going to start happening regularly until you complete this tree. So basically, you're going to want to do this entire tree at once. It's only going to hurt you to keep putting it off. And so you lose 40 political power. So again, political power just continues to drop and drop and drop. Also, let's take a quick look at the Hollywood question in case anybody's curious. But while you are going to get a bunch of political power from these 2, it's really important to plot out how you are going to deal with this issue, because it can just drag on and on for years at a time, and even when you're done with the rebellion, you still are spending time recovering from the disaster. Alright, I guess the event that I'm waiting for is not going to pop up. Oh, here we go. The fate of Hollywood. So this just gives you a few different options here where you can do things like have Hollywood propaganda, which costs political power, but you get more every day. You can gain political power and unity. Just some different options that are available to you. But again, if we went with the worst political power option in exchange for factories, look at that. This looks like Russia more than Mexico. You know what I mean? Let's take a look at what the secret police give us here. Okay, there we go. So yeah, this is what you're given. 2 secret police divisions. Whoops. That are just a couple of infantry. You know, nothing too cool. But I think that is now actually everything that we have gone over here. Obviously, you can join the international right here. Only takes 14 days. But I hope that this guide was helpful for you. I'm Conquering History Games. Be sure to subscribe and click the little bell so you're always notified whenever a new video or live stream is going up. And remember that if you are a Patreon supporter, you actually get to vote on future content, such as these guides that I release weekly on nations in the world of Kaiserreich. I think by next week we should have 0.5 out, although I will not I've already got next week's nations, I think. Well, no, I don't have it planned yet, but I'm pretty sure I know what it's going to be. And then after that, maybe we can get some 0.5 nation guides completed. Anyway, like the video if you did, and you all have a great day.